please welcome to the show America's accountant, Mr. Dan Geltrude. Dan, thanks for coming on. That pesky inflation just doesn't want to seem to go away, and maybe in the short term, it gets worse before it gets better. Is that possible?
It is possible, Scott. Look, we're going to go into what I would call a great experiment here with Trump coming back into office. So a little history. Let's not forget, cumulatively, inflation is up 20% since Biden took office. So we are not going back. That we are not going to retract to that point no matter what happens, in my opinion. Now, this month-to-month comparison is misleading because people are trying to say, well, the experts, quote unquote, are trying to say, well, it's not that bad. You know what? To the American people, that data doesn't matter. Why? Because they're feeling pain. Now, Trump says he's going to fix this. So one of his main approaches here, Scott, is drill, baby, drill, right? And that is going to lower inflation. Will it? Let's hope so. But I have to say he's onto something. You and I have talked quite a bit about how energy is a key component to lowering prices. But that's not the only component. It's got to be done with a bunch of other things. Now, if he's going to drop tariffs into this, you know, it could get a little messy here, Scott.
And look, okay, they dropped tariffs in there. He's going to cut taxes. I know that ultimately, after a long period of time, you might get more tax revenues from a tax cut. But in the short term, that could be inflationary. I just think the market expectations, at least, are way ahead of themselves here. It's way too soon to say this is going to be all hunky-dory, because the realization is it's probably going to take a year. And by then, we'll have a much better idea. I don't like this idea of making big bets right now on the back of the fact of what I think he's going to do. I need to see a little bit more proof in the pudding. And the inflation god is not dead yet. And because of that, he could be adding on to it in the short term before he actually takes away from it in the long term. That's my problem. So, who knows what these tariffs can do? Who knows what cutting taxes will do? I mean, it's still way too early to say Dow 50,000.
You're right, and that's why I said it's a grand experiment we're going to be going into. Let's go back historically, Scott, when Ronald Reagan took the reins in 1981, and he had a terrible situation with inflation, amongst other things. That didn't go away right away, to your point. It took him basically his first term to get things under control. So now Trump's got one shot at this thing, right? Because he's only got one term left. Let's see what he can do. Look, I think a lot of things economically related, Scott, are not so much about the data, but it's about people's viewpoint. People start to feel optimistic. Things move in the right direction. So I think Trump has that on his side right now. But you're right. Before the medicine is going to take effect, we could be feeling more pain.
Yeah, and here's the deal. I think that they're going to have to let inflation run hotter than they would like because of our debt, because of the line item on our annual debt. I mean, the national debt's going to be through $36 trillion very soon here. We've got the second biggest line item on our annual debt is in the interest debt service that we have to pay on the debt. They're going to let inflation run a little bit hotter than I think that they moved that 2% target to between 3 and 4, because they're going to want to try to monetize that debt and, pay back that strong dollars they borrowed with cheaper dollars and try to keep the debt interest on an annual basis a lot lower. That kind of goes against what we're talking about here, right? I mean, that's going to be a problem.
It is a problem. And look, when you start talking about our national debt and what a huge problem that is, you have to start somewhere, Scott. So when you find yourself in a hole, what's the first thing you do? You stop digging. and that's where I think we are right now. At least let's hope that we're going to stop digging and figure out a way to fill this hole back up.
There is that intangible, and I said it in the monologue. There's something about having that better expectation feeling, right? And that's there is a monetary, something that goes with that. I don't know how you can sum it up, but yeah, when everybody starts feeling better and has a little bit more of a positive attitude, that can change things real quick. 10 seconds to you.
Well, that's an important intangible, Scott, and you can't always put your finger on it, on right. What it is, but it exists.
All right, and you exist for this show. Thank you very much. We're going to see you again next week for sure. Thank you, Dan Geltrude, coming to us from Nutley, New Jersey, America's accountant. All right, here's a look at these equity